We have ruined our own food system. Whatever else you do, you cannot damage the water you drink, the air you breathe, and the food you eat. We have done damage to all three of them. And we are in a state of denial. President or Prime Minister Harper or President Bush or all the Prime Ministers of the world, they're all meeting over climate change. And they say, we can't do it because if we do it, then we'll lose jobs and the economy will come down. How are we going to do it? So let's wait until 2050 and then we'll think about it. But 2050, you won't be there. I certainly won't be. But I want to make sure that before I go, I'm already 75 years of age, that something is left behind for my grandchildren. That they will have a healthy life. They will have what nature made for them. What nature continues to make for them, we're not letting it anymore. Why? What's in our food? Let me simplify it. It's my job as a scientist to speak in simpler terms that apply to life, that everybody understands, that everybody can do something about. Not sit in this ivory tower and talk about all kinds of chemical formulas and science and so forth and complex names of diseases and all that. That's rubbish science. If scientist is true, that science, we should be able to communicate in very simple, plain language, not in Greek and in Latin. Simple. In our food system, during the last 50 to 60 years, we have introduced 5 materials against the law. Those materials have never been tested because the law, the Food and Drugs Act, requires that anybody who wants to sell any product that will ultimately end up directly or indirectly in the human body must be tested and shown to be safe for human health, and it should be done by the company or the person who wants to sell that product and prove to the Minister of Health that this is safe. It is the company's responsibility under the Food and Drugs Act to bring that information and satisfy the Minister of Health that it is safe. And if it's not done, then the product cannot be approved. And if somehow it gets approved, then the law says that product shall be removed. And if somebody falsifies, lies, whether it's a company or a government official or a politician, they go to jail. Because the Food and Drugs Act is attached to the Criminal Code of Canada. But none of this has been applied. We have not tested our food for all the 5 products. What are they? Those are hormones, antibiotics, slaughterhouse refuse, genetically modified organisms, and pesticides and herbicides that go with them. 5 products have never been tested. And the governments, especially in the United States and Canada, insist that they're safe. Nobody's tested them. The Europeans began to test some of them. And about 20 years ago, quite a number of years ago anyway, they have banned at least 3 of those materials. Hormones, antibiotics, and slaughterhouse waste. Because now there is proof that in 50 years, as a result of the use of these products, many chronic diseases have been increasing. Cancer, diabetes, reproductive disorders, immune disorders, neurological disorders. All these diseases have increased phenomenally during the last 50 to 60 years, and they're continuing to increase. Therefore, the European Union has banned those 3 products. They have not yet made up their mind on genetically modified organisms. What are genetically modified organisms? Once again, using the name of God, nature does not permit genes of one species to enter the genes of another species and survive. You can artificially take some species which are closely related, and you can make hybrids out of them. You can create hybrid seeds for certain characteristics. Nothing new. This was done by Mendel back in 1600 something. That's how modern biological genetics and so forth started. We can. In simple terms, you can take a horse and a donkey and you cross them, you get a mule. But that mule may look like a horse, may look like a donkey, it's sturdier than both of them, but it's infertile. It cannot reproduce. So nature prevents that. You can't take a zebra and a horse and cross them. You can interbreed close by species. But what genetically modified organisms are doing, they're taking gene of a plant, introduced into the fish, or gene of a pig into a human, and vice versa, and all over the place. Now, how do they do it? Because you can't just introduce a gene chemically from one to the other. So they take viruses and they mix them with the DNA and hope some of that sticks to these viruses. Then they literally take like a gun in a little box, shoot it, and these viruses transport it into the genome of species, and then hope they find a characteristic. So for example, by producing canola, which was a Canadian invention, by the way. Canola is, it stands for Canada Oil. It was a commercial hybrid seed production in Canada. It was a good job. Comes from the mustard family. But it's less pungent, that oil. But now, almost 100% of canola is produced from genetically modified seeds. Because they made it tolerant to a pesticide called Roundup. Roundup is a chemical taken from somewhere else. They made this canola more tolerant to this pesticide. The farmer can spray the field. Everything that exists will die. It'll be completely cleaned up. You can drive around in the fall, you'll see completely. My garden has weeds and so on, but these fields and fields are there, nothing there. Then they come back and then they sow this Roundup ready canola, and then they spray it again. But because now this is now resistant to Roundup, so therefore only canola grows, everything else is killed again. Just imagine if you are killing